Hello, ladies. I'm Dodie Hawkins. I'm the Social Action Chair at Central United Methodist Church. And we're here to visit with Sister Joan on issues of climate justice and just energy for all in our beautiful state of New Mexico. As you all know, just energy for all is a major social action issue for United Methodist women. I'm sure many of you have seen this poster, and the top one is Just Energy for All. Our national office has been doing many, many things, and you've probably attended their videos, etc., that they've had recently. Again, if some of you remember, in 2016, we had a Mission U study entitled Climate Justice, A Call to Hope and Action. So this was done at the start of the social action campaign for Just Energy for All. So what we'd like to do now is to review where we are in New Mexico. Do we still have concerns? Are Just Energy for All issues all settled? So I think Sister Joan Brown, who is the Executive Director of New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light, is here to answer some of those questions for us. Thank you so much, Sister Joan, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to do this for us. So I think the first thing is we have many concerns related to oil and gas in New Mexico. Maybe you could tell us about that.
Right. Well, first of all, Dodie, thank you for inviting me to do this. It's just wonderful. And hello, everybody out there. So, yes, before I get into the oil and gas, I'd just like to make note, though, that in our state, our governor in 2019 put forth the Energy Transition Act that was passed in the legislative session. And that was a groundbreaking bill and effort, and noted throughout the whole country, calling for various degrees of moving into renewable energy and energy transition to 100% or to zero emissions by 2050. And so that has been really very out there and wonderful. And there's just a growth in renewable energy, wind and solar. So with the concerns of the Methodist women, that is something that's huge and just wonderful. But as you said, we have so many things to work on yet. And one of the areas is in the oil and gas arena, because we have so much of that production here in the state of New Mexico. And just to mention, one of the areas that has been worked on for quite some time, and the United Methodist Women at the federal level have worked on this also, were methane rules with the EPA and the BLM that unfortunately have been undone, rescinded. So we in our state have been working on state methane rules or regulations. And we've gone through a process of hearings, public comment. The rules are being written right now, or the regulations, and there will be, at probably the beginning of 2021, another opportunity for public comments for those guidelines. And it really is to protect the health of our communities, of the children from asthma. It's to stop the wasting of this resource, which is God given to us, and the royalties from it. Once they're captured, the gas is captured, methane, it goes into our education fund. And the other thing with this is methane let to go into the air as it is now is an enormous contributor to climate change. And in fact, it is a greenhouse gas more than 80 times as potent as carbon dioxide over the short term of 20 years. And even though we've in this kind of downturn of economics and all now, a report just came out, it was in the paper today, that the methane pollution worldwide has soared 32%. And the United States is one of those contributors, and of course, New Mexico is there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's one of our concerns.
Absolutely. And another one about the orphaned and abandoned wells.
Yes. So in this state, because we have so much energy production, right now, because we're in an economic downturn and there's less oil and gas, and some companies are going bankrupt as well, there are orphaned wells. And actually the state has said that we have about a backlog of 700 orphaned wells that need to be plugged, and that's so pollution does not go into the air. And the cost to do that would be $24 million about to plug those, and another approximate $34 million to reclaim that land and water. And these are with companies that aren't able to do it. They've gone bankrupt, they've abandoned. The state only has $2 million in financial assurance from these companies to do this work. So that is a huge difference from what over $50 million needed, and we have $2 million.
Do you think that's something that will come up in the legislature?
Yes, I do. It did at the last legislative session, and it did not pass. So we're anticipating that that is something that will be coming forth in the next session. But that would be great to have United Methodist women, people of faith, to be engaged in supporting that.
And I know another issue that I read about and am very concerned about is this issue of produced water, or the water that is left over after the fracking process, after the mining has taken place.
Right, and that's another large issue, and there will be something, we are not sure what, but there will be some ways of trying to address that at the legislative session that New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light is working on, will work on, and will need a lot of support of people of faith and Methodist and Methodist women to work on, because it's about the future of our water, clean water for our children, and we're in climate change, and we, right this moment, much of the state is in extreme and exceptional drought condition. And this water in the oil and gas field uses tremendous amounts of water. So in this, what we're looking at, just overall, the folks that are working on this, and we have one of our faith leaders working with this with us, is to restructure the laws and regulations to protect public health, the environment, and our fresh water resources. Number 2 is to prohibit use of fresh water in the oil and gas industry unless it's absolutely necessary. And then to prohibit the use of oil and gas wastewater outside of the industry so that it will not be used for irrigation or other things, because there's toxic chemicals in it that we don't even know what they are at this point. So this is a huge issue as we face climate change in our state.
Yes, it is a big issue, and it's frightening to think that, we'll say, some of our farm animals might be given this water, which in turn, we eat the cattle or whatever, or the eggs from the chickens that are.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that we need to protect our water, and it's a precious, precious resource.
That's right. I mean, right now, how much of our fresh water is going into the oil and gas industry, and they can reuse their own produced water.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly,
Yes.
Dodie. And in our religious traditions, we hold water to be sacred, and it's used in many different ways for blessings, for sacraments in some traditions, in our indigenous traditions, for ceremonies. And it needs to be clean and fresh, and we need to have clean water for our children and future generations.
That's right. And what about the renewable energy and just transition? You're saying here, like for community solar.
Yes, and I know that's something that you all are very concerned about, that just transition. And we've had for the last, I think, 4 years in the legislative session, we've been trying to get through community solar, which would be solar for renters, for people who are of lower income, who can't afford to put solar panels on their homes. And we're going to be working on that bill again. And so it just makes it accessible. It kind of addresses this gap, of economic gap, of who benefits and who can't because of economy as we move forward into renewable energy. So it's part of a just transition.
And how about the Green Amendment? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, so Interfaith Power and Light is really on board with this, as many others are. The Green Amendment is quite simple. it says that we need to take into consideration health and also in the environment, in any kind of regulations, legislation, etc. in the state. So it will be worked on in the legislative session, then it would have to go through to the public, because it's going to be amendment to the Constitution. There are 2 states in the country that have this amendment right now, and that's Pennsylvania and Montana, one of our states in the West. And it's just a common sense kind of thing to imagine we do not have protections of our land, of the water, of our health, and those should be their God-given rights, I believe.
Right.
So that we'll, be trying to gather all kinds of faith communities to sign on in support of that one.
And I think it was an editorial in this week's paper about that California has had blackouts because they haven't been able to store enough wind or solar energy. And how would you address that issue? And they're saying, oh, we've got to keep oil and gas because wind and solar are not going to be sufficient.
Right. Well, with this argument, it's kind of falling by the wayside more and more because technology is moving so rapidly, and the storage of the renewable energy is, becoming more and more dependable, and that's how we're moving into the future, and in that way. And in fact, the replacement of the San Juan generating power plant for PNM is made possible partly through storage, and that's going to be renewable energy. So we are on our way.
It's nothing to really be concerned about that we'll have blackout periods or whatever.
I would not think any more blackouts than we already have. We have a grid right now, and we have a lot of blackout periods. There are some folks here in Albuquerque that were without power. Was that about a month ago for over a week, I think? So,
That's right. It would be no different if it did happen.
Right.
Okay, sister, is there anything that we haven't discussed that you think the ladies should know about?
Dodie, I think these are some of the major things in our state. There, of course, are many others. But just to say that it's just really important for women of faith to get engaged in this, and there are many ways to do that. And we just look forward as Interfaith Power and Light to continue working together, which has just been a wonderful joy for us.
Thank you very, very much. We so appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dodie.